What's up everybody, my name is Bhavik and collectively with my wife we are Binge Travelling, and as a channel we promote travel anywhere, anytime. On today's episode it's super exciting. We've got my really good friends Mukund and Riddhi, who unfortunately are stuck in India of all places during this COVID pandemic. They took some time out to travel for 6 months but have been halted in India. So I thought it would be a really great opportunity to speak to them, hear about their experiences and just get into it. Mux, Riddhi, are you both okay with that?
Yeah, sounds good.
Perfect. Right, so as I mentioned before, you guys have been travelling for a little while, so before we kind of get into the nitty gritty of you guys getting stuck, what was your plan initially and where did you intend to be?
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Riddhi, Rids, and this is my husband Mukund, or Mux. In terms of our plans for our travels, we kind of left England thinking that we'd do a trip for around 6 months. So we started in Myanmar or Burma. We spent kind of 2.5 weeks there, and then we came to India where we were kind of planning to spend around 4 to 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And then after India we were actually going to go to Sri Lanka because we've got some friends there that were going to get married. And then after that it was really quite open, so we were thinking of going to the Philippines. It's somewhere where both of us have wanted to go for a really long time. And then after that we were kind of thinking of going over to Central South America, so it was very open-ended itinerary, to be honest. We had a rough idea. We booked our outbound flight, really, our flight to Myanmar. Everything else we hadn't really booked or kind of pre-planned, so it was open-ended in that sense.
That sounds like a super bold holiday. I mean, literally you're just discovering as you go along, and it's brilliant, really. It sounds awesome. But when it comes down to it as well, I guess when this whole thing was halted in India, how did you guys initially feel when this kind of COVID pandemic was kind of locking down, as well as being stuck in India of all places?
Yeah, it was really strange actually, because when the whole COVID situation sort of started spreading across the world, obviously it started in China, and actually started in China sort of December, January time, and we didn't fly out until February 2020. And so when we flew out, there was very little awareness of it over in Europe and in the UK. And then when we were in Myanmar, again, there wasn't too much going on. There was a few people wearing masks, but over in Southeast Asia, it's quite common to see people wearing masks because of pollution. And then we got to India towards the end of February, and again there still wasn't that much awareness. So when the lockdown happened in the middle of March, sort of around the 20th of March, it really took us by surprise, because there's only less than 100 cases, I think, in India, in a country of over 1 billion people. So the lockdown was really surprising, but we kind of just took it in our stride, because we'd been travelling pretty much non-stop every 2 to 3 days for about 6 or 7 weeks up until that point. So at that point we thought, if we have to stay in one place for a month, 2 months, it's not the end of the world. We can sort of relax, unwind. We'd been pretty busy with work up until we left. Riddhi was actually working up until the Friday, and then we flew out on the Monday. So it'd been busy with work, busy with travel, so we took it sort of in our stride. I don't think we anticipated being stuck here for 3 months though. We were kind of thinking, maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Surely places can't be shut for any longer than that. But we were really wrong.
Yeah, here we are 3 months later.
Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah, no, it could be really, I guess it's so frustrating, especially when you've taken all that time out and all that planning to kind of get out there for so long. But I guess once it became apparent that the pandemic wasn't going anywhere, have you been, what's the experience been like in terms of, I guess, getting back? Have you been worried that you're not going to be able to get back for a long time or anything like that? Has that been a concern for you?
I think, the experience here in India has been amazing. We were really lucky, because if we had been anywhere else in India, sort of sightseeing or whatever, we would have been in a hotel and we would have been stuck because hotels started shutting, and in some cases kicking tourists out, because there was a lot of fear about this. Whereas we ended up in a small town in India, which we're quite familiar with, where our parents have some friends, so we got people to look out for us. And actually what ended up happening was when we got here, our parents asked one of their friends who own a flat here and if we can stay there, and they said absolutely. So what we ended up doing was coming to this flat. The problem was that the keys were with the owner in the UK, so we ended up having to break into this flat using a hammer and saw to get through
in
the
soaring
locks.
heat in the middle of the day.
Yeah,
Mukund was sweating by the end of
35, 40 degree heat. But yeah, we've been here since, and it's been like a home to us, so we've been absolutely fine here. Maybe you can talk about in terms of coming back, Riddhi?
Yeah, so I guess initially the first kind of 6 to 8 weeks of us staying here in the flat, like Mukund said, we were really on the go up until that point, so we just really enjoyed the chance to relax, wake up when we wanted, not have to think about what we were planning for that day, just really relaxing. You know, there's fresh food available nearby. We just have to walk kind of 200 meters and there's carts selling fresh mangoes and melons and bananas, papaya, yeah. So really we took it as the chance to just relax and detox, I guess, and reset, just recharge our batteries, I guess. I think about 2 months in is when we started feeling like every day was feeling the same. They were kind of blending into each other, and we don't really know what day it is even now. Everything, you know, there's nothing to mark a weekday from a weekend. So I think after about 2 months of that, we started feeling like it was getting a bit repetitive.
And I think, you know, when all this kicked off, the UK were arranging flights back for British citizens stuck abroad, but we didn't really understand how long and how big of an impact this would be. So we kind of thought, you know, we'll wait out here 6 weeks, 8 weeks, surely it can't be any longer than that, and then we'll carry on travelling. So we turned down the opportunity. They were really expensive as well. The flights were over £600 one way back to the UK. So we turned that opportunity down. But yeah, like Riddhi said, after a couple of months, you know, things started to get a bit repetitive, as I'm sure is the case for everybody across the world, really, being stuck indoors. So now we're just waiting for international flights to start up again, hopefully in July, and then we'll fly back home to the UK.
Yeah. You know what, like, it's really interesting that you were talking about your, I guess, experience of buying fruit and veg and that kind of thing, and essentially living in India for the past couple of months. Obviously, it's not the experience that you hoped for in terms of traveling to different countries and seeing different cultures, but I guess on the flip side, you got an entirely different experience, didn't you, in terms of basically living in another country for a few months. So in terms of what you've taken from what's living in India, do you like what you've seen there, and has anything surprised you since you've been there?
I mean, we've really enjoyed it. I mean, firstly, the weather is incredible. So at one point it was arguably too hot. It got to about 40 degrees during the day, which was pretty uncomfortable, but still much rather prefer that than, you know, cold, drizzly England. So the weather's been great. Like Riddhi said, we've been eating really healthily because all the fruit and vegetables here are fresh and super cheap. You know, we're getting kilos of fruit and veg for less than £1. You know, literally pennies. So we really enjoyed being here, and I think we've taken away some pretty important lessons too. I think, you know, the reason why we decided to do this whole travel was because it's something that we've always wanted to do. We've dreamed of doing, taking a decent chunk of time out, 6 months, and going away travelling. And I think what this has taught us is how important that attitude really is. You know, nobody knows what's around the corner. Anything can happen. I don't think anybody at the start of 2020 thought that this was going to happen. And so if there's something that you really want to do, that your heart's set on, you know, don't wait for a day where it could or could not happen and keep delaying things. You know, if there's something, not necessarily travel, anything in life, if there's something that you really want to do, just go for it and seize the opportunity.
Yeah, I'd probably add to that as well. Staying in India, you know, I guess us being Indian as well has probably helped in some ways, so we can kind of get by with a bit of broken Hindi, which is useful in talking to the locals and getting things. And like Mukund said, we've been to this particular town in the past as well, so it wasn't completely new to us. I'm sure for people that maybe don't have that bridge, it's probably a lot more difficult for them to kind of get settled and get used to the lifestyle. But yeah, in terms of our learning experience, I'd probably say as well, you know, accepting kind of when things don't go to plan. You know, we didn't really have a big plan when we came out, but we had a rough idea that, yeah, we're going to spend 6 months and we're going to hopefully go to these different countries. And obviously we're our second country in, and then we're stuck here. So we're going to have ended up spending 6 months abroad, but more than half of it in just India, you know, in this flat. So, you know, things haven't gone to plan, as again, like they have for lots of people, you know, people that have had weddings or babies and lots of really important occasions that have had to be cancelled or postponed. So, you know, it's not ideal, but I guess for us, the thing that we've kind of taken away from that is, even though there's a lot of disappointment and sadness, hopefully there's something positive or something you can learn from that, some kind of lesson, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're totally right. There's always a learning experience, right? Whenever you go anywhere, and it sounds like you guys have taken a lot from it. I was reading some blog posts over the last couple of weeks leading up to this interview, and I think your experience seems pretty reminiscent of other people as well. Obviously other people don't have contacts and things that you're fortunate enough to have in India, but kind of they've learned how to kind of cook and essentially learn how to live the Indian way, which I guess is good for the country of India. Lots of people are kind of experiencing the country in a completely different way or unexpected way to what they expected in that respect. I guess, like, you had this big plan. Now, obviously we're stuck in this current situation. We don't know when borders and things are going to open up again. Do you have plans to kind of, I guess, rekindle this trip? If so, when? And do you have any concerns about I guess, how long these restrictions are going to kind of linger on for?
Yeah, so, I mean, when we decided to do this, it all felt like everything was falling into place really nicely, because Riddhi was doing a 3-year postgraduate course at university, which ended around September last year. I was also doing a role at work, which was ending towards the end of 2019 as well. So it was like a really nice clean break for both of us to fit this 6 months of travelling in. And so it felt like everything was really going to plan, but, you know, COVID happened and flipped the world upside down. And like Riddhi said, it was, you know, something that we had to learn to accept and just keep things in perspective. But kind of like I touched on earlier, we really think that it's important for us to do this again, because it's something that we, you know, have always wanted to do, that we really, it's something close to our heart, you know, exploring and seeing other countries and cultures. And so we're planning on doing this again when we have the time, which might be in a year or two when things come back to normal. But we're willing to wait, and we'll try and fit it into our busy lives and busy schedules after that, really.
So, guys, when you do eventually plan to kind of rekindle this whole trip and do it again, I'm assuming that you guys will be doing that. How will you take into consideration, I guess, the changes that are going to come about? Obviously, we don't know exactly what's going to change, but the travel industry is going to change in some way, shape or form. So how do you foresee that? What do you think you're going to do?
You know what, it's, let's be honest, it's completely up in the air, isn't it, at this point in time, because nobody knows, nobody saw this coming, and nobody knows how it's going to pan out. I think a lot of it's going to be dependent on a vaccine. If there's a vaccine, then countries will be a lot more open to letting people in. Some countries have already started opening up their borders, and there's been trouble already because, for example, I think I read in Greece, when they first opened their borders, they allowed a plane in and found after the plane landed that a whole bunch of people on the flight were tested positive for COVID. So things are going to be really choppy over the next sort of year to 2 years, I imagine. But I think the biggest impact, particularly in the short term, is going to be on prices and also the sort of demographic of travellers, because I think countries are going to cut down on their focus on budget travel and backpackers. I think they're going to want people to come in who have money to spend and who aren't going to be cramped in hostel rooms, who are going to have their own room for health and safety purposes. And that impact is going to be felt by us, the customers and the travellers, because prices will probably go up, and those sort of budget restaurants, those budget B&Bs, even those budget flights, they might be more difficult to come across in the near future.
Yeah, definitely. No, I completely agree. I think from what you're saying, and let me know if I've got this wrong, but I think the sentiment is that travel is an awesome experience, and I think whatever changes are going to happen in the travel industry, I think we've all got to endeavour to adapt, move on, and keep doing it, because I think there's so much that you can miss if you kind of just listen to everything. We have to adapt and move on. Travel will go on in some way, shape or form. We're yet to see what it's actually going to look like, but we've just got to move on. And in the sentiment of what Mux and Rids were saying just now, the world was turned upside down, but the best thing about the world is that it's round, so all we can do is roll with it. So on that note, you like that one? So on that note, I just wanted to mention that these guys are bloggers, our fellow bloggers, and I've got a link to their site right here, so you can check it out. And we're going to wrap up for today. Really hope you enjoyed this interview. Make sure you subscribe, hit on that bell notification so you get alerted to our videos every single week. Thanks, and for now, see you guys.